Good morning, everybody. It's Monday, and I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a great weekend as well. I posted a few things last week about mold, and I've gotten a lot of responses, so that's why this board behind me is full. On Mondays, I'm trying to give you just little bits of information, but with all the questions and all the interest around mold, it turned into something just a little bit more. So I very much appreciate you asking questions and interacting with me. Remember, give some thumbs up. Remember to share. And your encouragement for today is to have courage and to be kind to others. Okay, so Monday morning, you need to have something positive to think about and to do, because mold, not so positive. We're going to talk about mold as an illness versus mold as an allergy. That was one of the questions. Now, you can have both, but I'm not talking about the people who are allergic to the environmental mold. I'm talking about people who actually get really sick because their body can't break down the toxins that the mold is creating inside their body. Okay, so first thing we need to talk about is the first picture that I had posted last week was actually a picture of my shower. So that shower, we let go a little bit too long, and I showed you all along in the seams underneath the caulking where mold had been starting to grow. And we needed to take care of that. So we did. I gave you a before and after picture. We tore out the caulking. We cleaned it. And so the next question is, what do you clean it with? Because I know you all want to clean it with bleach, and don't do it. Don't use bleach. That's only going to spread it and get it into the atmosphere, and you're going to breathe it in. So don't use bleach, but you do want to use, let's see, right there on the screen behind me, to clean mold. If you have it in your showers, if it's on your windowsills, because in newer construction, you may think, oh, I don't have any mold in my house. But that new construction, those windows are sealed so tight that moisture starts to accumulate on your windowsill. And when it turns black and it gets inside the wood, guess what? You've got a whole bunch of mold growing inside that wood there. So keep those clean too. But again, tea tree oil is going to kill the mold. Vinegar will kill the mold. And H2O2 is hydrogen peroxide. Do not use bleach, okay? In my shower, it used vinegar, and it stunk like vinegar for a little while. So did my dog stink like vinegar because he got sprayed with a skunk, and we used vinegar on him to help get rid of that smell. It works great. It really works great. So it cleaned up the mold nicely. When my husband was cleaning up the shower, I made him wear a mask. Why would I do that? Because I didn't want him breathing it in. He's already sensitive from a lung standpoint with a history of asthma, and then breathing in all of that mold that we're tearing up or releasing into the atmosphere when we clean it, straight into his lungs. So he had to wear a mask. So remember that too. When you're cleaning it up, use those good ingredients that aren't going to be harmful for you, and they are going to kill the mold though. So lots and lots of questions about having mold in your environment, and then also mold inside your body. Now, the other thing that we're going to talk about on Wednesday is actually candida or yeast. Now, wait a minute. We're talking about mold and we're talking about yeast. Are they the same thing? Nope, not the same thing at all, although they are all fungi. Okay, they're funguses, but we're talking about two completely separate things. So stay tuned for Wednesday evening at 8:30 p.m. and we will talk about yeast infections, systemic, in your gut, in your vagina, in wherever else you can get it on your skin. Okay, but let's get back to mold illness. If you think you are suffering with some mold, I want you to check out survivingmold.com. Dr. Richie Shoemaker is the best medical doctor out there who has researched mold the most. And most of the people who are taking care of people with mold illnesses have learned from him first and then modified how they take care of their people. But survivingmold.com is a great resource for you. And then evaluating, do I really have mold illness or not? Okay. Along this side right here, you can see there's a whole bunch of different symptoms that you're probably suffering with, and it could be related to mold. But even as I was writing those things up there, I was thinking, well, this sounds like thyroid. Oh, this could be an adrenal problem. Oh, maybe this is related to allergies. So these are all really, really common symptoms. And it just goes to show you that not one organ works in isolation of the rest. So these are common symptoms associated with mold illness, but they can be symptoms related to something else. So definitely some of the things I'm going to tell you today are easy to clean up and do on your own if you think you have a moldy problem. But if that doesn't take care of the issues, then you need to go see somebody. You need to get tested to find out what is going on. And again, as well, with all of these different symptoms, you may not figure that out at first. Maybe you go down the road that you think it's mold, you get tested for mold, you get your home tested for mold, and you find out it's really probably not mold. It could be something else. Just get tested and then you start to figure it out. Sometimes you have to do a bit of detective work. So let's see what else I've got behind me here. These symptoms are caused by mycotoxins. Keyword being toxins. The symptoms are created because the toxins that these molds make are making you sick. So most commonly, it's related to a water-damaged building. Now, think about that. I get so many responses from people to say, well, I have a brand new home. I don't have any mold in my home. It's not just old houses that have mold in it. But if you think you might have a mold problem, look at your house. Have somebody come in and inspect it. Get an environmental services business to come in and test your air and test your walls for mold. Because guess what? It hides. You don't always see it and you don't always smell it. Now, when you go into the basement and it smells all musty or you see black stuff growing on the wall, you definitely have mold. It needs to be remediated. If you or your family are the ones who are tearing down walls, expect to get a lot worse because you are getting exposed to it. So it is well worth it to have somebody else remediate that, or you potentially can get a lot worse until it's cleaned up. Because the number one step to do is to get rid of the mold out of your environment. Now, I just said the house. And I've had people who have had new construction, and one person in particular realized that when they did have it inspected, they found out that some of the venting wasn't connected up in the attic. So they were retaining all of this moisture and mold was starting to form in the insulation. Brand new home, but it wasn't done properly. So don't fool yourself. Get it checked out. There could be something like that going on. I've had a person who couldn't figure out where the mold was coming from. But she kept being inflamed and kept being inflamed. And then they found it in an upstairs bedroom that she used for crafts. And it was in the closet behind the wall. That's where it had leaked from the roof behind the wall and started to create a whole bunch of mold there. So that's your house. But have you ever left the windows open on your car? Did the seats ever get wet? Or did it ever get wet inside the door panel? Another common spot where mold can start to grow. So think about your home, think about your car, think about your work. Several of my people that I work with have had mold at work. That, they'll clearly tell me all of the ceiling tiles above where they work, you can see the water damage. They constantly have a leak. Another gentleman that I work with extreme anxiety, he used to be a teacher. He's completely incapacitated to get out of the house right now, although he has been improving. But he worked in a moldy classroom. They knew they had water damage there, and he worked in that environment for 10 or 12 years. And then a couple years after that, his body finally said, I can't take it anymore. So think about a variety of different environments that you might be getting exposed to. Again, it's the toxins that these types of molds start to create. So I see that there's a glare there. These are just aspergillus, acremonium, penicillium. The other ones you probably wouldn't recognize anyway, but they're different molds that can colonize and start growing, and then into the environment they release their spores. Okay, the spores that then you breathe in or that you touch, and that gets into your bloodstream And actually those toxins can cause genetic damage. So when we move over to what do you need to do about it, what kind of foods are playing a role in it as well, know that food is your medicine and it's going to help heal you just as much as it can hurt you. So it can change the damage that happens to the DNA. So it doesn't have to be a permanent thing. But the other thing to recognize too, I think I got that over on this side, can't see it, but 75% of the population can eliminate these toxins without a problem. It's the rest of you. It's the 25% who were either genetically predisposed. Hi, Amanda. Thanks for joining. Or lots of people get set up from their childhood, actually, that they slept in a moldy environment in the old farmhouse and they never seemed to have a problem at that time. Or maybe they did and everybody thought it was allergies. And it sets the stage. It sets the stage for this inflammatory response, which is now termed CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome. Okay. Again, it's from the biotoxins that are floating around and colonizing in your body, in your system, that then make you have all of these symptoms from all of the inflammation going on throughout your body. Okay. One great test, which is super easy to do, you do it on the computer, you do it at home, is a visual contrast study. Okay, you're going to find it on survivingmold.com, and it's a visual acuity and depth perception, and it's one way to evaluate how much of a mycotoxin load do you have on your body. Now, how do those two things relate? Well, let's see, where do I have it on the screen? Right behind me. Right behind me where you cannot see. These spores have neurotoxins, okay? So here again are the different, some of the different types of molds, but they're neurotoxins, kids. Neurotoxins. What does that mean? Neuro, your brain. Look at the symptoms: fatigue and weakness, numbness and tingling in extremities, stiffness, poor memory. They affect your brain. They clog the system up. They actually get into the fat cells and create inflammation and send out all these cytokines and create this reaction throughout your body. So these neurotoxins are what are so damaging to you. So it affects your vision as well. So this is a great test for you to do now if you think that you're suffering with mold illness. And then once you clean up your environment and you do some of these things to change what's going on for you, well, then do the test again. Okay, and see how much it changes. That gives you some indication. It's not a tool to diagnose you. It's just a tool to help quantify your symptoms, really, and by one way of looking at your vision, and then see how much it improves when you do different things. Okay, so what do you need to do? You need to get out of the moldy environment, whether that's your home or your work or your car, maybe even your furniture. I worked with an Amish family who they build their own homes, the community that I was working with, and they built their home so airtight, nothing could get out at all. They had mold everywhere in every room of the house. The woman that I was working with constantly had lymph node swelling. She was swollen and hurt and so fatigued. Extreme exhaustion. They actually moved out of the house. They burned all of their furniture, all of their clothes, and they built a new house that had some airflow going through it. You have to get out of the environment. If you don't, and you try to do these other things, you're never going to get better. Okay, you have to get out of the environment. So it's well worth being tested. Then we need to start to eliminate the toxins. Sometimes we need to treat it with antifungals. Sometimes we need to use some herbs to decrease the load as well. But then most importantly, we need to bind all those toxins. And your body's going to break them down, bring them into your liver, and dump them into your GI tract, into your gut. So you have to make sure your gut is working okay. You got to make sure those bowels are moving every day. And as you start to bind these toxins, you can't get constipated. If you get constipated, you just reabsorb it all. You have to get those toxins out of the body. Get them moving out of your body. So CSM, cholestyramine, is just a medication actually that's prescribed for cholesterol lowering, but it's a binding agent. It's actually used to bind up your food so you absorb less cholesterol. And when I first started working with people who had mold, I used that a lot until I got an ingredient list, and it has aspartame in it. So don't use CSM. But I have recently found out that there's some pharmacies who will make it on their own and not put sugar or artificial sweeteners in there. So it's a really, really great binding tool, and I may use that in the future if the compounding pharmacy can make it. Bentonite clay is very binding. I use a lot of charcoal and a zeolite spray. All those things will bind to those toxins to help you get it out of your body. Remember, most often it's not the mold in your system making you sick. It's the toxins from the mold exposures. And now when I was referencing people get, hi Jeremy, exposed to it when they're younger, and then we have all these life experiences and this happens, or I have this disease, or now I've got autoimmune, or now I've had babies, and X, Y, and Z have gone on in your life, and you're eating a bad diet, and then all of a sudden you seem to start having a problem with mold. And people who have been exposed to toxic mold can become super, super sensitive to different foods and things in their environment. So you can easily say, oh no, I've had that and I've never had a problem with it. So why at the age of 30 am I having a problem? Or why at the age of 50 am I now all of a sudden having a problem? Well, enough toxins have built up and your body has finally said, I can't take it anymore, and it's releasing that. Now let's think about the other pictures that I posted just yesterday. Tons of a response on that. Thank you to the person who I asked if I could share her pictures. That is all one person. Yeah, and it's pretty nasty. And it actually didn't start out that bad. It got worse. It got a lot worse as I was helping her, as we were treating it, as we were breaking down those toxins. She's got a great detox pathway right through her skin. So she had tons of itching, tons of rashes, and she was suffering for quite a while. Yeah, that's why she sent me those pictures. She's like, look at my skin. Oh my God, what is happening? Is this okay? It was perfect. It was great. Her body was getting rid of it. We were binding things. We were breaking down things. We were actively treating it. She was cleaning up her home because she discovered that some clothes from a previous house were still in the new house, but we're still releasing spores into the environment. So she cleaned up the house 100%. We got through the treatments, and now she doesn't have any rashes and itching anymore. Okay, but it got a lot worse before it got better. So we have to eliminate those toxins. We're going to try to bind them. They're going to go out through your gut, but they can also go out through your skin. If you have any colonizing molds in the body, we got to treat that. The nasal passages, if you're one who's constantly stuffed up, congested, and you think you might be suffering with mold, we probably need to treat for mold in your nasal cavity too. It can get very resistant there. It can actually get biofilms there. But vaginal infections, gut infections, even systemic infections, sometimes those have to be treated. Again, I addressed this a little bit, detoxing. You need a lot of good detoxing support, and remember that the skin's a detox pathway. And think about getting an air filter. If you're concerned, hello, Joanne. If you're concerned about mold in the environment, cleaning it up, getting specific filters on your furnace, because if you've had it in your home and now it's going through your furnace, it's all in those filters there. There's actually one, somebody was telling me about some UV light filters that they put in the furnace because she was very sensitive to the mold in the home, and they were doing everything they could to clean it up. So a UV light in the furnace filters, look up that if that's something that you're interested in. Good morning, Emily. So let's see what else. Infrared sauna, great way to detox as well. Okay, what didn't I cover yet on the board behind me? Well, let's switch where I'm sitting. I'm going to switch sides here. Sorry about that. That was awful. Foods. Guess what? Foods can be triggering you too. So some of you have probably heard of, hi Janelle, hi Gracie, thanks for joining everybody, thanks for the thumbs up, and don't forget to share, and don't forget, hi Matt, that we're going to be talking about Candida on Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m., and how we're talking about mold illness today, but Candida is absolutely different. So foods can be affecting you. You may be super sensitive to them right now. Doesn't mean you'll always be sensitive to them, but your body is so overstimulated. It is so inflamed that you start to react to different things. And some of you may be familiar with David Asprey from Bulletproof. He put some really good information out there, and he had a terrible time with mold himself. So he's got a great story to tell and great information that will help you a ton as well. Good morning, Natasha. Good morning, Janelle. And so foods to avoid: alcohol, wheat, rye, peanuts, cottonseed, corn, barley, sorghum, cane sugar and beet sugar, even hard cheeses. Why do you have to avoid these? Because they could be contaminated with mold. Be careful with any one of your nuts. If you don't get them fresh, it's really easy for nuts to get moldy. So you might be ingesting mold that you don't even know that's there. Something to consider. And think about when you first are cleaning up your body. So it's not just cleaning up your house. You got to clean up your body too. And you don't want to feed the mold. And it's going to feed off of sugars and grains. So even some recommendations, if you really need to get super tight on your foods, it's going to mean every single grain, which then also means rice and oats, things like that are typically okay. You know, the wheat, barley, and rye are the gluten foods, but any grain would be the best advice, at least temporarily, to make a change inside your body. One super good thing that you can do, and especially for your gut, is to get started on some probiotics. Now, if you're a good eater and you eat a lot of fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, things like that, then you might be getting enough probiotic, but most of the time you're going to need a lot higher dose of probiotic, especially while you're fighting mold. So think about getting a good solid product that's got a long list of strains of bacteria, because you want to dominate the GI tract with that good bacteria to help take back control inside your body. And so you want a lot of different strains. Don't just go buy one that has one strain of a bacteria. You're full of trillions of bacteria. Adding one isn't going to make the difference. So 100 billion CFU, 10 to 15 different strains twice a day, that's going to be what you want to do. And if I go back to those binders, you also, if you're ingesting that binder, you need to take it away from everything else. If you take that binder with your probiotic, you're going to bind your probiotic, and then it's not going to do you any good, okay? And then some other little tips of some mold fighting foods: garlic and ginger and cayenne and even berberine are easy things to incorporate into your diet or to take as a supplement when you're fighting mold. That will help you a ton. So every single person who's fighting mold, or if there's anybody who's fighting mold, they all may have different symptoms, and they all may have different treatment strategies. It all depends on the person, okay? So remember that. I didn't put up there one specific protocol. This is what everyone needs to do and everyone needs to take. And anytime you see that from a provider, you know they're not paying attention to you and your individual things, because you may have other things that are playing a role as well. So not everyone can ever be treated exactly the same. Might there be common things? Absolutely. Everybody needs to be put on a binder. Does that mean everyone can tolerate the same thing? No. And sometimes you got to start real small and slow if somebody's really super sick, and then build them up to be able to tolerate the treatment. Because like I gave you that example in those pictures of that skin, she got really bad. She wasn't happy with me at all, but she's happy with me now. She's super happy with me now because she's over it. And she did the things that she needed to do, and she was diligent, and she feels so much better. So Remember that 75% of the population can actually eliminate those toxins pretty well. It's the other 25% that can't. But then there's those of us who have other illnesses, autoimmune disease, or maybe you've had cancer, things like that. It sets you up to be put into that 25% bracket of being more sensitive. So I'm not sure how accurate that 25% is when I think about the number of people that I've worked with who do have a mold issue going on. So I am going to scroll through and see if I can find any questions. Otherwise, I really appreciate you joining me today, and hopefully Mondays work for some people. Remember, you can always replay it if you didn't catch it from the beginning, and remember to share and remember to like. Emily, open sores in your nose on and off. Okay, that's a problem. We need to target that a little bit. Thank you, Emily. You always give me such nice comments. Amanda asks, antifungal like nystatin. Nystatin absolutely is an antifungal. Treating mold, I probably would not use nystatin, but I definitely use nystatin when I'm combating yeast or candida. So again, it all depends. How does mold affect your intestines? Can it cause itching and inflammation of the intestinal wall? So you wouldn't necessarily have itching of the intestinal wall because the receptors there wouldn't send that message to your brain that you itch. You definitely can be itchy on your skin. Can it be inflamed? Absolutely. It's from the, again, it's from, where is it behind me? Sorry. Okay, it's from the toxins, the mycotoxins, biotoxins, and they cause tons of inflammation. So anywhere and everywhere inside your body can be affected by that inflammation. So remember, we talk a ton about the GI tract, and it's supposed to be nice and tight and closed, but when it's inflamed, when it's got irritations, it's going to get leaky. This is a leaky gut or intestinal permeability. So it absolutely contributes to that, which then also contributes to creating food allergies, not just being sensitive because you've been food allergies and they cause more inflammation. And again, this chronic inflammatory response syndrome where your immune system has been activated and it's just sending messages, fireworks, literally going off with chemical messages throughout your body to say, oh, I'm so inflamed, everything's going on and I don't know how to deal with it. We got to get that to calm down. So great question. I know, Amanda, totally a full board. I didn't expect that. This was, again, Mondays is supposed to be quick and fast at giving you some tips and things, but again, I'm trying to respond to the things that you want to hear about. So you asked lots of questions and people had tons and tons of comments. Key things, if you think you have mold in the house, remember to clean it up. Tea tree oil, vinegar, hydrogen peroxide. Just don't use bleach. That's the best tip that I can give you. Definitely wear a mask when you're cleaning it up as well. And I just want to thank you for joining me, and I'll talk to you again soon, okay? Bye-bye.